Look, I get messages every day from people asking me if they should buy a house right now, if prices have bottomed out, if it's a good time to get on the ladder, and I have to tell them something they don't want to hear. We're nowhere near the bottom. In fact, we're just getting started. I've got data here that the mainstream media won't touch. Real sales data, not asking prices, not estate agent propaganda, actual completion prices. And what they show is terrifying. 20 cities where prices aren't just falling, they're in freefall. Places where entire neighborhoods are being abandoned, where people are literally walking away from their mortgages because the numbers just don't work anymore. Let's start with Sunderland. You know what's mental about Sunderland? 18 months ago, people were having bidding wars over 3-bed semis, offering 20-30 grand over asking. Cash buyers from London coming up on the train, viewing houses for 15 minutes and buying them on the spot. Fast forward to today. Same houses. Can't give them away. There's a street in Roker where 8 houses are for sale. 8. On one street. The cheapest one started at 220. It's now at 135 and still no takers. But here's what nobody's telling you about Sunderland. The biggest employer in the area just announced they're moving operations to Poland. 3,000 jobs. Gone. The council knows this. The estate agents know this. But they're still telling people it's a great time to buy. I spoke to a family there last week. Bought their house in 2022 for 290. Fixed rate mortgage ends next month. New payment, double. They tried to sell. Estate agent laughed. Told them they'd be lucky to get 180. They're now looking at bankruptcy. And you know what's really sick? There's an investment firm. I can't name them for legal reasons, but they're backed by Middle Eastern money. They've been approaching these desperate families, offering to buy their houses, but not at market rate, at 40% below, because they know these people have no choice. Newport, Wales. This one's personal for me because I told people 2 years ago this was coming. I said the Cardiff commuter boom was unsustainable. I said Newport prices were fantasy. People called me negative, said I didn't understand the Welsh market. Well, here we are. Average price drop, 47%, but that average hides the real story. New builds on the edge of town, down 60%. Those shiny apartment blocks near the station that were supposed to transform Newport into Cardiff's cool younger brother, half empty. The other half, owners trying desperately to sell. There's a development called Riverside Quarter, marketed to young professionals. Started selling units at 320. You can buy one today for 140. And I mean today, right now. Go on Rightmove after this video. 140 for a property someone paid 320 for. The woman who bought the penthouse apartment killed herself 3 months ago. Left a note saying she couldn't face the shame of losing everything. The local paper didn't report it. The developer threatened them with legal action if they did. But her neighbour told me. Showed me the note she left him asking him to feed her cat. That's what this crash really means. Real people, real consequences. Bolton's interesting because it shows you how the government's actually making this worse on purpose. See, Bolton was always a working class town, affordable houses, decent jobs, strong community. Then during COVID, Manchester money started flowing in. Developers spotted an opportunity, started building executive homes, 4 or 5 bedroom places, 450, 500 grand. Problem is, they built them for people who don't exist. Bolton doesn't have that many executives. The people who work in Bolton can't afford 500 grand houses. And the Manchester commuters? They've all gone back to the office. The hybrid working dream is dead. So these houses just sit there, empty. But here's the kicker. The council needs the tax revenue from these properties. So they've been approving more and more developments. More empty houses. More debt. More problems. It's a death spiral. And they know it. I've seen internal emails from Bolton Council. They're projecting a 35% drop in property tax revenue over the next 2 years. You know what that means? Services cut, schools closed, the very things that make a place livable disappearing, which makes more people leave, which crashes prices further. There's a street in Horwich where every single house has been on the market for over 6 months. Every single house. The estate agent told me they haven't had a viewing in 3 weeks. Not one viewing. These aren't bad houses. They're decent family homes, but the families have gone. Oldham breaks my heart because it's where normal people go to die financially. It was supposed to be the affordable alternative to Manchester, the place where teaching assistants and nurses could actually buy something. Not anymore. You want to know how bad Oldham is? The food banks are running out of food. Not because of donations drying up, because too many people need them. Middle-class people, people with jobs, people with mortgages they can't pay. A teacher contacted me last week, been teaching for 15 years. Bought a house in Oldham in 2021, 240,000. Thought she was being sensible, thought she was doing the right thing. Her fixed rate just ended. New mortgage payment is 70% higher. Her salary went up 2%. She's trying to sell, but the house is now worth 160. She'd need to find 80 grand just to clear the mortgage. 80 grand she doesn't have, will never have, so she's stuck, teaching full-time, living on pot noodles, too ashamed to tell her family. The really sick part, her street is being bought up by a company registered in the Cayman Islands. They're paying cash, below market rates, but cash, and desperate people take cash. Blackpool was always a gamble, a tourist town trying to reinvent itself. For a brief moment during the pandemic boom, it looked like it might work. Property investors poured in, holiday lets everywhere. The dream of the British seaside revival. That dream is now a nightmare. The holiday let market has completely collapsed. Nobody wants to holiday in Blackpool when they can fly to Spain for less. The investors who bought at peak prices are hemorrhaging money. I've got data from a letting agent there. 80% of holiday properties were empty this summer. 80%. These owners are still paying mortgages, insurance, maintenance, council tax, but no income. Zero. So they're panic selling, all at once, flooding the market. A seafront apartment that sold for $280 in 2022 just went for $90,000. 90. That's not a price correction. That's a complete collapse. The knock-on effects are brutal. Every cafe, every shop, every business that depended on those holiday visitors is dying. The town centre looks like a war zone. Boarded up shops, closing down sales. Even the Wetherspoons shut. Stoke was supposed to be the poster child for levelling up. HS2 was coming. Investment was flowing. The pottery industry was having a renaissance. Then reality hit. HS2 got cancelled for Stoke. The investment dried up. And the pottery industry? Mostly moved to China. What's left is a city with grand plans and no way to pay for them. House prices have crashed 44%. But that number doesn't tell you the human cost. There's an entire estate in Hanley where nobody lives anymore. Not because the houses are bad, because everyone who lived there lost their jobs when the distribution centre closed. The council tried to attract new businesses, offered tax breaks, free land. Nobody came. Why would they? The infrastructure's crumbling. The skilled workers have left, and everyone knows Stoke's dying. A landlord I know owns 15 properties there, bought them as his pension. He's 62. His entire retirement plan just evaporated. 15 properties he can't sell, can't rent, can't even give away. He tried to auction one. No bids, not one. Scotland's housing crash is different because nobody wants to admit it's happening. The SNP keeps saying the Scottish market is resilient, independent, strong. It's not. Dundee's the canary in the coal mine. Prices down 51% from peak. The waterfront regeneration that was meant to transform the city. The flats can't sell. The V&A museum that was supposed to bring tourism. It's bleeding money. But here's what's really happening in Dundee. The city's biggest private employer just announced they're closing. 1,100 jobs in a city of 150,000. That's devastating. The workers found out through a text message. A text telling them not to come in Monday. Their mortgages are due Monday. Their kids need feeding Monday. But their jobs are gone. The Scottish Government's response? Silence. Because acknowledging Dundee's collapse means acknowledging Scotland's economic problems. And they can't do that. So Dundee dies quietly. Hull thought it had found its salvation. Renewable energy, wind farms, green jobs, the future. Companies made big promises. The council believed them. People bought houses based on those promises. The promises were lies. The wind farm contracts went to foreign companies. The manufacturing jobs never materialised. The Green Revolution bypassed Hull entirely. Now Hull's sitting with thousands of new houses built for workers who never came. Entire developments empty. Ghost neighbourhoods where the streetlights come on every night for nobody. The city centre's even worse. Shop vacancy rates at 60%, the highest in the country. Because when people can't pay their mortgages, they don't go shopping. When they don't go shopping, shops close. When shops close, more people lose jobs. It's a death spiral. There's a couple I met who bought a new build in Hull for $270. Believed the hype about the energy revolution. He was an engineer. She was a nurse. Solid jobs. Solid people. Their house is now worth $120. They're trapped. Can't sell. Can't move. Can't start a family because they can't afford it. Just stuck. Waiting for a miracle that's not coming. Swansea's crash is hidden because it's happening in slow motion. Unlike the sudden collapses elsewhere, Swansea's dying gradually, which makes it worse. Because people keep hoping it'll turn around. The university was the anchor. Students needing housing. Parents buying investment properties. A steady stream of young people keeping the city alive. Then the university started cutting courses. International students stopped coming. Suddenly, thousands of student properties had no students. The landlords tried converting them to regular rentals. But who wants to rent a 5-bedroom house share in Swansea? Nobody. So they're selling, all at once, crashing the market. A street that was 90% student housing is now 90% for sale signs. Prices have dropped 46% and falling. The The estate agents have stopped updating their windows. What's the point? Nothing's selling anyway. But here's the really dark part. The university's planning more cuts. Another 3,000 students gone next year. Those landlords still holding on. They're about to get destroyed. Birmingham should be fine. Second city. HS2 coming. Commonwealth Games legacy. Major businesses. It should be bulletproof. It's not. The city council's effectively bankrupt. They can't provide basic services. They're selling every asset they own just to pay wages. And property investors have noticed. They're running. Apartments in the jewellery quarter that sold for 600,000 are now struggling at 300. The buy-to-let investors who drove the boom are desperately trying to exit, but there are no buyers, because everyone knows Birmingham's got worse to come. The council's about to implement the biggest tax rises in UK history, 21% increase coming, on top of mortgages people already can't afford, on properties worth less than they paid. It's going to trigger an exodus. I've seen the internal projections. The council expects 50,000 people to leave Birmingham in the next 2 years. 50,000. That's not a migration. That's an evacuation. Leicester's problem is simple. The factories closed. All of them. The textile industry that built the city is gone, and nothing replaced it. 20,000 jobs lost in 18 months. 20,000 families without income. 20,000 mortgages that can't be paid. The math is brutal. Entire streets in Highfields are being repossessed. Not individual houses. Entire streets. The banks are taking them back so fast they can't process them. They're boarding them up and leaving them empty because putting them on the market would crash prices even further. But the prices are crashing anyway, down 48% and accelerating because everyone knows Leicester's finished. The young people are leaving. The old people can't sell. And the city's dying. The council tried to attract new business, offered a company free land to build a warehouse. The company took the land, built the warehouse, then automated everything. 6 jobs created. 6. The council spent £15 million for 6 jobs. Coventry bet everything on being the UK's motor city. Electric vehicles. Battery factories. The future of transport. Then reality hit. The Chinese can make batteries cheaper. The Europeans make better cars. And Tesla's not coming to Coventry. The promises were empty. The jobs never appeared. And everyone who bought property based on those promises is ruined. New builds on the edge of the city are down 55%. The developers have walked away, literally abandoned the sites. Half-built houses standing empty, roads that lead nowhere, a monument to failed ambition. The human cost is staggering. Families who put deposits down on off-plan houses have lost everything. The developers went bust. The deposits are gone. The houses will never be finished. And there's no recourse, no compensation, just loss. Wolverhampton is where the middle class goes to die. It was supposed to be commutable to Birmingham, affordable, safe, good schools, everything young families wanted. Then the train fares went up 60%. Suddenly that commute wasn't affordable. The Birmingham job market collapsed, and those young families are trapped in houses they can't afford in a city with no jobs. The primary school just closed. Not enough children, because families are leaving, but they're not selling their houses. They're just walking away, handing the keys back to the bank and starting again somewhere else. The repossession rate in Wolverhampton is the highest outside London. 1 in 30 households. Think about that. In every street, someone's losing their home. Sheffield had everything going for it. 2 universities, advanced manufacturing, beautiful countryside, culture. It should have worked. It didn't. The advanced manufacturing turned out to be not so advanced. The Chinese do it better and cheaper. The universities are cutting courses. And the beautiful countryside doesn't pay mortgages. Property prices are down 43%, but it's worse in certain areas. Kelham Island, the hipster regeneration success story, down 60%. Those converted factories that were supposed to be the future of urban living, can't give them away. The young professionals who bought them have discovered a problem. Industrial conversions look cool, but they're expensive to run. Heating costs are insane. The service charges are criminal. And when you need to sell, nobody wants them. Bradford's been dying for years, but COVID gave it hope. Cheap property, space, Asian families from London moving back north. For 18 months it looked like Bradford's time had come. It hadn't. Those London families discovered why property was cheap. No jobs, no investment, no future. They're trying to move back but they can't sell. Nobody wants to buy in Bradford. The city centre is a ghost town. The shopping centre that was supposed to regenerate everything is 70% empty. The hole in the ground where the cinema was supposed to be has been there for 5 years. House prices are down 49%, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is nobody believes they'll recover, ever. Bradford's not having a correction. It's having a funeral. Nottingham proves that even successful cities can crash. Because Nottingham was successful, growing, thriving. Then the investors arrived. They bought everything, every student house, every city centre flat, every development opportunity. Prices went insane. Local people were priced out. The investors didn't care. They were making 20% returns. Then the bubble burst. Student numbers dropped. City workers stayed remote. The 20% returns became 20% losses. And the investors ran for the exits. All at once. The market couldn't handle it. Prices collapsed 52% in 12 months. The fastest crash in UK history. Faster than Detroit. Faster than anywhere. Now Nottingham's full of empty investment properties nobody wants. The investors won't drop prices further because they'll crystallise losses. But nobody will buy at current prices because everyone knows they're still too high. It's a standoff, and while they wait, Nottingham dies. Liverpool physically hurts me because I called this exact scenario 2 years ago. I said the waterfront apartments were a scam. I said the prices were fantasy. I said investors would get destroyed. Nobody listened. Now those waterfront apartments are down 65%. 65. The penthouse that sold for 1.2 million just resold for 400,000. That's not a haircut. That's decapitation. The entire Baltic Triangle, Liverpool's answer to Shoreditch, has collapsed. The creative businesses left. The bars closed. The apartments are empty. It's a creative quarter with no creativity. Just debt and disappointment. But here's what's really sick. The council's still approving more apartments, more towers, more debt, because they need the development money. They need the illusion of growth, even though everyone knows it's fake. The population of Liverpool's actually falling. People are leaving faster than students arrive, but they're still building thousands of apartments for people who don't exist. It's insanity, and it's deliberate. Newcastle was meant to be different. The party city, the tech hub of the north, the place where London companies set up their second offices. For a moment, it was all true. Then the London companies discovered their staff didn't want to move to Newcastle. The tech hub turned out to be 3 startups in a converted warehouse, and the party ended when everyone ran out of money. Prices in Jesmond, where all the young professionals bought, are down 57%. The quayside apartments nobody could afford? Still nobody can afford them, but now they're worth half what they cost. The really cruel part is how they marketed Newcastle to southerners. Come north, they said. Your London salary goes further here. Quality of life, community, everything you can't get in London. People believed it, sold their London flats, moved north, bought at the peak. Now they're trapped. Can't move back to London because they've lost so much money. Can't stay in Newcastle because their London companies are making them redundant. They're stuck in a city they don't want to be in houses they can't sell, with jobs they're about to lose. Glasgow is Scotland's biggest city. It should be Scotland's economic engine. Instead, it's Scotland's biggest disaster. The SNP won't admit it. The media won't report it. But the numbers don't lie. Merchant City, Glasgow's premium district, has seen prices fall 59%. The luxury apartments that defined Glasgow's renaissance are worth less than the mortgages on them. Negative equity everywhere. But it's the new builds on the Clyde that really show the scale of the disaster. Marketed to international investors as Scotland's Manhattan. Sold off plan to Chinese buyers who never intended to live there. Just investment vehicles. Pure speculation. Those Chinese buyers want out, but they can't sell. Nobody wants a 2-bedroom flat for 500,000 in Glasgow, so they're abandoning them, walking away, leaving the banks with thousands of empty apartments they can't sell. The Scottish government's response? Pretend it's not happening. Because admitting Glasgow's collapsed means admitting Scotland's economic miracle was a lie. So Glasgow crashes in silence while politicians talk about independence and ignore the independence of gravity on house prices. I saved Manchester for last because Manchester was supposed to be the success story, the London alternative, the northern powerhouse, the future. If Manchester could fail, anywhere could fail. Manchester hasn't just failed. It's collapsed so completely that they're hiding the real numbers. The published data says prices are down 20%. The real number from actual sales is 48%. And in the city centre, 70%. Those towers that defined Manchester's skyline, half empty. The penthouse in Beetham Tower that sold for 3 million, just resold for 900,000. The buyer from 2020 still owes 1.8 million on the mortgage. But here's what makes Manchester special. It's not just a property crash. It's a complete economic collapse hidden in plain sight. The banks that funded all those towers are sitting on billions in bad debt. They can't call it in because that would trigger a banking crisis. So they pretend everything's fine while the losses mount. I've seen internal documents from one major lender. They've got 4 billion in non-performing Manchester property loans. 4 billion. That's just one bank. Multiply that across all the lenders, and you're looking at the biggest property debt crisis in UK history. The government knows. They've had emergency meetings about it. The option on the table: let Manchester fail completely, then rebuild from scratch. Controlled demolition of an entire city's property market. The human cost will be catastrophic. 300,000 households in negative equity. 50,000 repossessions projected. An entire generation financially destroyed. But the banks will survive. The foreign investors will profit. And the people who caused this will walk away rich. These 20 cities aren't anomalies. They're not outliers. They're the beginning. What's happening in Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham will spread. No city is safe. No property is protected. Because this isn't a natural correction. This is engineered collapse, designed to transfer property from British families to international capital, from people who live in these houses to companies that see them as spreadsheet entries. The government could stop this. They could restrict foreign investment. They could support mortgage holders. They could prevent mass repossessions. They won't, because they're part of it. They profit from it. Your house isn't just losing value. It's being stolen from you in broad daylight by a system designed to ensure you fail. And the worst part, most people still don't realize it's happening. They still think this is temporary, that prices will bounce back, that everything will be okay. It won't be okay. Not unless we make it okay. Not unless we expose this theft. Call it what it is, and refuse to accept it. If you own property in any of these cities, you need to act now. If you're thinking of buying, you need to wait. And if you know anyone affected by this crash, you need to share this video with them. Because the only power we have against this orchestrated collapse is knowledge. The crash of 2025 isn't coming. It's here. And now you know exactly where it's hitting hardest.